Hello, and a very warm welcome. Today we're going to continue just to bolster this notion that there's a very pro-Roman message through the four Gospels and Acts as well, and in Paul, like through the important books there of the New Testament, the ones that don't look like they're from kind of celestial. They have these celestial leanings, Jude and James and John and stuff. And this is again a layer, subsequently, one of the more advanced in time layers of the New Testament that shows a dominant Roman influence on these stories. So it shouldn't be a long video. Just going to go through these instances here. So the pro-Roman elements in the Gospels and early Christian texts are literary analysis supporting the Flavian Hypothesis, right? So this is directly tethered to the Flavian Hypothesis that I'm putting forward, that Joseph Atwell has put forward, that James Valiant has put forward, and a few others. The canonical Gospels and several New Testament epistles reveal a striking sympathetic portrayal of Roman authorities and values. This essay compiles and analyzes all major pro-Roman elements in these texts, highlighting how they might fit with the Flavian hypothesis that the Gospels were constructed or influenced by Flavian-era ideology to promote peace, obedience, and alignment with imperial power. Very quickly, and I really want to be diligent here, I will always try and make sure that I couch any speculation here as speculation. And this is, we'll continue. But yeah, I want to make sure that I'm being really conversant here with the known facts, and not trying to take speculation as truth. But okay, so 1, paying taxes to the Caesar, render unto Caesar, Matthew 22:17-21. Tell us then what you think. Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not? Then he said to them, of course, render to Caesar the things that are Caesar's, and to God the things that are God's. This has quite a beautiful and subtle kind of message for the things that are important, truly spiritually important, are really felt by the individual, the things that society make us do, those things that people collective, the collective kind of will of governments and people, are not so important. What is important is how you feel right here. So I get that there are meanings here which one can read into, and I think they're valid indeed, but there is also this dominant message here of pay your taxes, guys. Make sure you pay your taxes to the Caesar. So 2, faith of the Roman centurion, Matthew and Luke, 8:5-13, Matthew and Luke 7:1-10. Truly I tell you, with no one in Israel I have found such faith. This is a Roman centurion he's talking about here. A Roman officer is depicted as having greater faith than any Israelite. This not only elevates a Roman soldier as a model of belief, but also subtly denigrates Jewish lack of faith. That it stands alone as something very important. And that they would, Romans were routinely destroying the lives of Jews at this time. To want to do this flipperoo, this 180, it's like, I've heard it being likened to Daesh or ISIS suddenly turning around and saying, these Americans, no, they're great people, actually, they're wonderful. From their perspective, I'm not saying that ISIS are terrible, but just as an idea here, fanatically against the rulers of the time, on one level before 70, and now the flipperoo propaganda, as far as I'm concerned. A Roman centurion confesses Jesus' divinity as well. Mark 15:39, Matthew 27:54, and Luke 23:47. Truly this man was a son of God. The first acknowledgement of Jesus' divine nature after his death comes from a Roman centurion. Think of that. The first acknowledgement of Jesus' divine nature after his death comes from a bloody Roman, mate. Placing Pilate's innocence, in Jesus' death, Matthew 27:24, Luke 23:4, John 19:12. I find no guilt in this man. Pilate here is depicted as reluctant and even unwilling to crucify Jesus. The blame is shifted to the Jews. This exoneration of Rome plays a crucial role in neutralizing anti-Roman sentiment. 5. Roman soldiers treated favorably. Luke 3:14. Do not extort money from anyone, and be content with your wages. This is talking about, I think, again, this is likened to soldiers here who weren't necessarily paid well by Titus in certain moments. And, be content with what you have, guys. John the Baptist does not tell soldiers to have their posts, only to behave ethically. This affirms the legitimacy of Roman military service, right? In the Gospels, 6, Jesus is silent before Roman authorities. Mark 15:5, John 18:36, my kingdom is not of this world. Jesus refuses to present himself as a political revolutionary, emphasizing a spiritual kingdom and minimizing Roman threat perception. 7, Simon of Cyrene and Roman legal procedure. Mark 15:21, they compelled a passerby to carry the cross. This depicts a description of Roman crucifixion practice, including forced conscription for labor, is presented neutrally. There is no condemnation of Roman legal or judicial custom. Okay, Paul appeals to Caesar here. Acts 25:11. Again, appealing to the Caesars, Paul seeks Roman justice over local Jewish adjudication, expressing trust in imperial fairness. His Roman citizenship is consistently depicted as a legal shield. Okay, believers in Caesar's household. So Philippians 4:22, all the saints greet you, especially those of Caesar's household. This Paul here is supposed to be mythology, I'm sure, but it's supposed to be talking from Caesar's very household here. Why is he? What connection does Paul have here to Caesar's household? Christianity is portrayed as reaching the highest echelons of Roman power. The implication is that the faith is compatible with and even embraced by Rome at the writing of Philippians here. When this was, we do not know. When the final version was put up, we don't really know. 2nd century, I would assume. Though there might be more primitive copies of this book, certainly in the first. I have no problem with that. 10, first Gentile convert is a Roman centurion. Think of that. Acts 10:1-2. At Caesarea, there was a man named Coriolanus, a centurion, a devout man, Cornelius, a Roman officer, becomes the prototype of the Gentile Christian. His conversion sets a precedent for Rome as a fertile ground for Christianity. 11, submission to Roman authority as divine will. Romans 13:1-4, let every person be subject to the governing authorities. He is the servant of God. So he's talking here about the Romans being servants now of God. How completely antithetical was this to Jews who were fighting Romans tooth and nail before Jesus comes along, right? And this just does not place the Gospels in the 1st century. In the time that Gospels are supposed to have been written. This is impossible. If this is the case, he would have been. Obviously there are stories of Jesus being hounded by the Sanhedrin and so on, but this is so flagrantly strange to have been talking about in this time. Paul proclaims Roman rulers as ordained by God, reinforcing a theology of obedience to the emperor. Again, it's like Daesh supporters. I want to be careful here when I say that. I'm not trying to liken the Jewish rebels at the time as Daesh, right? But they were fanatical and very violent towards outside rule. So reinforcing a theology of obedience to the empire, again, this is completely an abhorrent idea as far as Jews were concerned. Absence of anti-Roman sentiment or vengeance, right? Generally. Luke 23:34, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. This is Jesus offers forgiveness to his Roman executioners. Nowhere is there a call for vengeance or revolt. When it comes to the Romans, it's the Sanhedrin's fault here. It's the evil generation, those den of vipers. Think about, he's just going completely against his Jewish brothers and sisters. No gospel condemns, the Roman Empire. None of them. There's no criticism of Roman brutality, imperialism, slavery, or taxation. Contrast this with the Old Testament prophetic denunciations of Egypt and Babylon. That's basically it. To conclude then, taken together, these passages represent a consistent ideological pattern. The Roman Empire is depicted as just, neutral, or even favored by divine providence, while responsibility for Jesus' death is increasingly placed on the Jewish authorities. Whether this is the result of Roman patronage, deliberate narrative strategy, or theological motivation, it fits well with theories such as the Flavian Hypothesis, which argue the Gospels were produced in a context supportive of Roman interest and imperial peace. These pro-Roman literary tendencies remain some of the strongest internal clues to the political and ideological environment in which early Christianity evolved. Now, I will, at some point, hopefully in the next maybe couple of months before, say, October, I'm going to go through the myths of martyrdom and some of the martyrdom stories which are kind of backwritten into history by Christians who come subsequently. The Ignatian story, completely mythological. I believe I've done a video on that. I think I have. Polycarp and so on. These are not really evidenced in history, and they contain all kinds of clues as to their mythic origin. And there are so many of them as well. There was definitely persecution that went on in the first 3 to 4 centuries, but they were very short-lived. They were fleeting, and they were often due to things that Christians had been doing, which were just against the law in Rome anyway. They were stubborn, difficult to handle at times. They caused all kinds of civil disruption. I think the Montanists went around causing all kinds of frays and fraying, and all that, and disturbances. So there's a distinction to be made between persecution and prosecution. So even that, of course, Christians say a lot. Well, there's so much martyrdom stories and these persecutions, but they're actually quite fairly short-lived. And when Constantine comes along, of course, then all of this goes away. And what would it be? There 200 and plus so years between Jesus' death. A little more than that, and then Constantine coming along, 300 years. But we see. When Jesus, and the Jesus story really gets going, you only find a couple of 100 years or so of these wranglings and this promotion by powerful people of Christianity who don't seem to be molested that much within the empire. We talk about Tertullian, Irenaeus, and so on. They were left to just go about their day and do their work and stuff like this. So we have to be cognizant of this. How much is martyrdom really a feature of this story? The Myth of Persecution by Candida Moss is a brilliant book. I have it, and I'll be relating stories from that quite a lot going forward. I've got quite a lot of things to go through here. It's going to be really cool. I hope everyone stays tuned. But yes, this essay here, just I wanted to illustrate how much the Gospels here, the Acts and so on, are really conveying a pro-Roman message, and quite emphatically so, quite indisputably. I'll leave that there for today. Have a nice one, guys. Take it easy, and God bless. May Gnostic Super Jesus bless you.